Soggy crickets today, folks. That's at least where we are at. Frozen crickets, lots of other places. Deep freeze, I understand. But that should have nothing to bear, nothing relevant to what we need to be doing. Why the crickets? We're not doing enough. We're not doing what we should be doing. We're doing what we think we should be doing. And as I'm finding out, as more and more I look at this, we're just not doing quite right. And I guess that must be a much bigger step than maybe I appreciated for myself coming through and just keep focusing and working on the next thing that needed to be done, working out what didn't work, and identifying exactly why and how, or at least with the best guess sometimes. But there's a way to do a lot of these things. There's a way to address all the ills, essentially, if we chose, and that's really the big deal. That's one of the choices, it seems. Yes, we were told, at least in America, we were told things were all hunky-dory, taken care of. We had a nice nest to live in, and that apparently has been the lie. And it has been for a long time, not just in our lifetime, I'll tell you. Not at least the way my research shows it. And apparently that research gives me an insight that's a lot different. I don't know why. I really don't understand it, because it's just information that's available. But apparently it's just different enough that whatever I'm saying, and I got quite a bit of feedback this week, and I think maybe with respect also to the John Statmiller interview that I did, that people are getting this information. It's just taking a while, and I'm just going to encourage y'all just to keep, wherever you get the information and wherever you find its quality, do your own backup research to back it all up and build that solid foundation. And one thing I do want to touch on, and it's coming more and more apparent, I'm trying to figure out where does this transition happen between, or how does it happen between your knowledge and moving it over into application? Again, knowledge is not power. Knowledge applied becomes powerful. And I say now it's a evolving type process, because you're up against literal criminality. As I was talking last night, the mining district meeting, it's beyond, I don't even have a thought. I don't even have a judgment about people. It's simply they're just criminals. I really don't have a thought beyond that interesting for myself. It's not like I get all angry about it. We just live amongst criminals or people taking advantage. And we weren't told how to deal with that, and we weren't expected to really think that we had to. And in fact, that was also the lie, that there's got to be a transition here. And I'm finding out in dealing with somebody here in the last few days, just trying to make a solid foundation is very difficult. We have a problem apparently in trying to just settle down and do very even simple things. And so one of the things I want to convey to people that are really trying to figure this thing out, and I really do appreciate that you're working hard to do so, and you're listening, and you're trying, and it may be not making sense, but I realize now one thing is you can be, and this is kind of why I touch on this a lot as well, it's not just the information and the quality. I'm realizing now you have to have an order to that knowledge. There has to be a foundation from which this knowledge works. And trying to get people to develop that is, I guess, it's more difficult. It's a thing. I guess I didn't realize it's a real thing that hasn't happened. You can be really knowledgeable on a subject matter, but not have all that information based on a foundation. It doesn't come from some place. It's just a bunch of disparate information out there. And so, and I've realized this kind of a thing. Now I'm having to think about it here. It's coming more to word, that it's one of the things that I deal with in helping people. I'm realizing I have to reduce everything to let's start from a simple spot. Let's just start from here and move on. And as I tell you, it kind of conforms itself to the idea, let me know what your interest is. So, tell me your passion, and if you want a suggestion of where you can start, because we're late in the game, you got to be put in the right position quick, and you don't want to waste any more time. And there's a lot of things you can do to waste time in the internet, and I'm available, as I say. Just tell me where you want to go, and I'll stick you on a trailhead, and I'll tell you, go down there, and I'll tell you if I've been down there and what I've found, at least in a very summary way, so that you can run down there and start finding these checkpoints as you go, and then find the things that you need down that path. And then wherever that takes you goes on. That's you're now running on your path, but at least you're focused. But just to go down this path is not enough. You have to have a foundation from which you build your knowledge. And apparently that's more invisible to people. So I'm just going to tell you that the things I talk about really have a more foundational point. And if you can reduce your information and build from a point, and don't use a lot of the fanciful stuff. I'm really finding out it's really important to stay with the printed material as far as what I call the occupier's rules, because that's the world you live in. That's your reality, whether you want to agree to it or not. And so you need to follow that. And I've found out if you turn it over into an obligation and duty on the occupier, you are faring a whole lot better. And so you have to understand better what they think they know, and you have to then if you know the foundation of where it ought to have been, and you position you speak from that position. You don't have to declare to everybody how much you know about it. You just know it, and that's where you speak from. That you amass and you categorize your knowledge, and you have to do it. You really have to focus and concentrate. And that may be another problem for us, especially when they're feeding us and not giving us food. That you build from a foundation, again, a solid foundation, not sand. A lot of sand out there, I'll tell you. And then you will, when you do that, your foundation is strong. No one can take it out and out from underneath you. If you don't have that, you're going to bounce all off the walls everywhere. And you'll think all your knowledge is helping you, and in fact it doesn't. And so I'd like just to convey that, because that seems to be, I guess these things come in waves. I've got quite a few people that I can tell have been working really hard to get it, to understand. A lot of information comes out, but there's no foundation to it. It's just information. So let's go from there, start from there, encouraging you to continue. I am encouraged. I hear lots of people telling me that just to continue what I'm doing, and y'all will catch up. And I just wish you had what I know in my mind. I think we would live in a different day, really. We would respond a whole lot different. I can't imagine how we couldn't respond different with what I've seen. And not because of my opinion of it, how I and those I work with have applied it. Way more importantly. What was the effect that we caused in applying these things I tell you? Did it work or did it not? And the success of that I may not be able to describe all the time or let out, because it's still maybe ongoing or private to somebody. Again, that's one of those trailheads. You just have to trust me that when you lay a proper foundation, you will not have questions. This is the interesting thing I'm finding. Even the occupier did it pretty right. Maybe not recently, but at least for the things that I focused on with the land disposal laws. That's solid foundation. Listen, soil is the ground, it's foundation. Land disposal law is the foundation. And you get in, and this is why I found so fascinating when I finally hit the mining law, through an arbitrary way to get here. I mean, it wasn't like I directed myself, but here I was, and there I am, and here I be today. The foundation of the soil is from where we build, the laws and relationships that we build. And you start to understand a very narrow, very powerful, foundational principles, which you can then turn out and look from. You don't expound on everything you know. You just look from that perspective. And you can out everybody that's a criminal, whether it's intentional or by accident. That's as simple as I can tell you that it really does work. And a lot of it is done by, you know them by their deeds, but they telegraph by their words. I keep telling you this. And words to me are just jurisdictions. Whether I can tell immediately whether or not you're talking in the right subject matter. Now, do I know all subject matters in all jurisdictions, all language? Obviously not. But within the narrow rule research I've done, I've got it kind of well covered there. And it doesn't take much of an adjustment if I have to. And you will all do that too, but you can't do it when your information's built on the shifting sands, and you don't know where this information comes from or why. And I focused on a couple things in language, the terminology. Terminology is specific to certain jurisdictions, and if you stick there and you really pay attention Doesn't mean your language has to be perfect. I'm talking about the way you understand, so that you turn around and do the right thing from with your knowledge, because the organization of the knowledge comes foundational. It doesn't come from disparate opinions, ideas, or things you found on the internet that didn't have really a source. And so in a way that, I'm just going to tell you, that's a lot, it lightens the load tremendously. It's not, I don't know what I sound like to somebody else. I know that it sounds like the caller on John Stampmiller, you talk so fast. Well, yeah, I do. I rely on the archive. I understand that. But what I'm saying is not, I don't think about what I'm saying. I mean, I understand the subject matter, and I know what I'm doing, and I know what I'm going at, but it's not like I have to formulate a thought. That's why I go so fast. I don't even have there's not a governor on this, actually. It's just a stream of information that comes out. And how can I do that? I believe it's because the foundation is strong. I don't doubt where my information came from at all. If I doubt, I tell you. I don't even say it. I have to do more research until I can let it out. And that's when I'm in an interview. That when I'm working with somebody, or working to stop somebody, I'm not letting them know what I know. That stream is working against them. They're swimming up the stream that I'm coming with, and they don't even know what that is. And you do that from a foundation and a lack of doubt. Really, I don't have lots of questions. Yeah, I have lots of questions. You understand that. On certain subject matters, in what I found important for me, and it ends up being important for really everybody, because the land is the substance of your life. It is the way of your life. How your society made the ability to hold land is critical to how you exist today. It's one of my main. I think I was able to see it today. I've had trouble with certain people talking about certain things. I heard it on James Corbett's discussion talking about property and anarchism. I had to write in the chat, UCY chat, an anarchist talking about property is an oxymoron. And this is my problem with anarchists, the changing of this definition to try and fudge everybody's way into a civil society. There's just a certain way society has come up to bring the peace. Remember, when the sheriff keeps the peace, it means the enemy of all society is chaos, is violence. It means that's the nature of us, is violence. And we've set up these rules to try and get along with each other. So I do not divorce the current place we are. And then I found out where we are had some really good points to it. It was corrupted and now become criminal. And really that was on us to not to stop, really, when we saw it. We were supposed to be, when they said vigilant, they meant it. I mean, this was immediate, and we never have been. For hundreds of years we haven't been. We were duped, and we bought into it. Me too. Somehow I've kind of gone through. It really meant something to me, that peace and that thing that we were promised. But I found out it really was up to us. Not it was given. We're the posterity, so to speak, and it was presented for us if we could keep it. They meant it. As I said, that was a license for the plunderer, and we didn't figure that out. Now I say it now. Do I know what to do about that? Not really, except that I realize that if you're going to have law, it's a socially agreed accountability standard of objective basis. In other words, getting rid of the vigilante gangland mentality. And it's a standard that we can all look around and measure each other by on our conduct. And the government, as I say, the government wasn't really ever supposed to become the club. It was supposed to be the neutral place. As I cognize it, maybe you see it different. And so for me, I see now, because of the mining district, it really was a source of government, and it was just people, men, women, getting together to protect themselves against themselves and from outside threat. Well, the outside threat is that natural law violence of the world. And so, without getting off on the anarchy thing and the oxymoron there, you can't. I don't agree with the current fudging of the word anarchy with respect to government. Anarchy is abject chaos. It has nothing political about it, because there's no order whatever. It's dog eat dog world. And civilization, such that it is, and I don't want to talk on the corrupt side, more than the better, why we went there, it was to set standards so we could stop this nonsense where Cain kills Abel. That's our inner nature, I think. So I know that I'm probably speaking contrary to a few people that even are my friends that we've been together for a long time, about anarchy. I've had trouble with people that speak the anarchy thing, but for me, I have never found anything. It's not a fudge decision. Anarchy is abject chaos. There's no order. You can't have property in an unorderly condition because you're waiting. The next guy that can come and take you out, takes you out. That means you're always going to sleep with one eye. That's not a peaceful living. And so the society has developed, even though it's been corrupted, and it's been giving us an objective place to be able to live with each other. And what's corrupted about that system is what we now can identify as a different type of system that's modernized, evolved, adapted itself, insinuated itself into what seemed to be a fairly decent plan at the point of property, we call it the best practice, but the best use for the land, as acknowledged by the needs of society, as people were talented and skilled to do that land, and the paperwork that gave the evidence of that exclusive possession and use, and then purportedly the courts, which used to, but purportedly the courts that were to use that evidence with these objective bases to protect the people that were producing for the rest. And even James Corbett had a question of what's the hierarchy? A question posed to him. What's the hierarchy? Well, in today's society, I don't know how it can be denied that not much of anything comes out that we use that doesn't come from the ground, the foundation, the soil. And so, and minerals are where you find them. In other words, it's not like planting crops and going somewhere. You can't just put them anywhere. And even crops, sometimes you can't put them in certain places unless you modify the environment. And we found out doing that actually improves that environment. But minerals are where you find them. They're not a resource. Notwithstanding all the legislatures and lawyers and legal beagles that'll tell you different. Minerals are not a resource. They're a source. Once you extract them, they're gone. Now, over eons, they may redevelop by certain processes, but they're a source, not a resource. So they are where they find them. And so that forms the basis of discussion on the hierarchy of need and authority on the use of lands. Wherever there's mineral, that's why it's called the dominant estate. The mineral estate is the dominant estate, wherever you go. Doesn't mean it domineers, it's just dominant in the priority. And so there's an answer. When we get away from anarchy, there's an answer to property. There's an answer to the hierarchy. And so I find so Corbett's, when he was talking on prior to this broadcast on UCY, you didn't hear that. You won't hear this when you hear me, but unless you listen to UCY. To me, none of that's a big question. None of that's a continuing concern. And the abandonment of that causes the waste of time and the regurgitation of all the stuff that ends up failing. In other words, we've talked about, well, who owns the land and what can you do? Well, they tried leasing. Congress tried leasing in minerals. It was an utter failure. And yet I hear a whole group of people saying, we're going to go back to leasing. It's been an utter failure. Why would we want to go back? Well, this is the new, we get to change things as we go. We don't remember our own failures now. This is how the insanity that comes on us. And that opens the door to more insanity or uselessness, useless activity. You can't come from where we are today and divorce how we got here and maybe the underlying whys. Unless you're going to say you're going to throw off the entire way of life that you were born into, for good or bad, whatever that is. I'm not making that judgment. And that's part of the problem that we see. Again, getting to your foundation. When we get back to that, you can have a lot of knowledge, but if you haven't built it up properly on a proper base of foundation, you're going to be all over the world on this stuff. You're going to be able to be led by the nose. As I tell you, take that ring out of your nose is exactly what I'm telling you here, that I've never really thought about it in this regard, but it's what I'm saying. It's what I've been saying. Take that ring of foundationless knowledge, anticipation, knowledgeless belief and benefits that you think you're getting. You got to pull that out of your nose so you can't be led by that ring. Someone put a leash in it and drag you around. And before, I've already kind of got off what I was going to start on, but I wanted to go back quickly. I did mention National Intel Report last week. I was in an interview with John Statmiller. I want to thank the listener who suggested I interview there so that I could go interview. Thank you very much. That's what I was talking about being, getting the word out. That helped as well to get what I would have to say to John. I think he was receptive. I think his listening audience was receptive. And then I want to make a special thank you to Jane for being in the chat room. I didn't go to the chat room. I was on a phone. And so I didn't get to, I got 2 days later, I remembered it was there and I went to go look. And I want to thank Jane, MC over in UCY, for being in that National Intel Report chat room and putting links in. So we were able to give people, she was able to help give people places to go look at this stuff. And I thank you for that, because I wasn't able to do that. And again, the availability of information is important. And I think what we provide does have the inherent foundation. Whether it's understood or not is a different thing. But once somebody digs in deeper, they'll find the foundation sits in what we provide on JeffersonMiningDistrict.com. What I do on the broadcasts, whether or not I can, artful is an artifice and scheme. But I mean, however skillfully I can say what I say, and how unskillfully, if you can just work that out over time. I mean, we don't have much time, but take what it takes to understand there is a foundation to this. I think that's why I can go so quickly, and I don't have doubts, folks. I just tell you, I don't have doubts. Doesn't mean I know everything. That's not what I'm saying. On the things I tell you, and I only try to choose things that I understand, which ends up being quite comprehensive, because when you're involved with something that comes from the soil, that becomes your whole way of life. That is the essence of everyone's way of life, all around the globe. Think about how universal that awareness becomes. And the distinctions just start showing up. You say, oh wow, we this country failed doing that, and look at that country's doing the very same thing that we failed at, and they're failing. You get to look with a new perspective. So the foundation here is very important. I'm asking you to take the time it takes, take the heartache it takes, take whatever emotion it is that wells up in you that you're saying, well, I shouldn't have to do this. Well, you're right, you shouldn't. But we have to do it. We have to have that foundation of who these people are and how they're changing our way of life so we can stop them. Because I can't find any evidence that what they're doing is better than some of the very most simplest things that regard soil disposal. Understand, soil disposal is production. That encompasses everybody that's producing from the land, whether that be the miner in sourcing or resources such as ranching, farming, secondary crops from the cows like milk, eggs, the animals themselves. It's all the grass that comes from. There's a forage, that comes from all that. The trees, all this stuff comes from the land. And when you don't have order and you don't have peace, that becomes impossible to develop in any intelligent way. And so peace to the producers must be maintained. It hasn't been, is the problem. It hasn't been. And now it takes these producers who work their lives away for producers I don't do the up at dawn and down and to bed at sunset. I don't do that. My whole time shifted. I got this weird shift. But I do my own schedule. I get up when I get up, and I go to bed 18, 20 hours later, whatever that is. But these people that have to go by nature and the sunshine and the moons and all that, they have to be doing what they're doing, and they can't stop because their animals need them. And so that's why you can't attack them, because they're defenseless, actually. While they provide for the people that are attacking them, they're defenseless. It's amazing what we've allowed to happen. It's not supposed to happen. But now the producers have to fight, and we were told, what I made the comment that the Secretary of Agriculture said. He told the people in I think it was Illinois or Iowa, you rural folks are politically inert. And I told you that was a declaration of victory. He was actually thumbing his nose at these people. This is the Department of Agriculture doing this. You know that they've signed on to Sustainable Development too. They don't want people that own property that produce. Why? We know. I don't know why, but they know. We told us they're going to control it. Where do we hear that? I've read it again. Agenda 2030. They actually come out and tell you in the next 30 or till another 15 years, they're now telling us they're after production and consumption. That's land, folks. That's your property. So, thank you. I do want to thank, and if I didn't thank anybody specifically who did help, I think there was another, someone else in the National Intel Report chat room also did links. Thank you. Anybody that's helped, I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. And thank you for the communications afterwards and the kind words. And we'll just keep plugging away as I have been. I don't really know. Actually, I don't know what else to do. I'm not that smart. I'm kind of stuck. I want to see us do better. And I think we can. So, appreciate that. And, I guess I'll just say here, not a big deal. John did invite me onto his network. And I've been really thinking hard on that. It's kind of a big deal. Getting the word out is a big deal. But I don't know that I'm going to be able to accept. I tried to figure out how to fit that schedule that he was offering me, which was I tried to get it down to 1 day a week, and he can't do it. He's got his schedule the way it is, and that's fine. But I just couldn't find the time. This really is the time I can only do the broadcast, and I can't devote more. So I probably won't be doing that for those of you that may be anticipating an answer there. In a way, I'm a little disappointed, but I'm not. I moved to a weekend broadcast, and I stop a daily broadcast because of the amount of work a broadcast takes. That what you hear me talk about, the lawsuits, the activities that we do, the coordination, the dealing with problems in people that are up against the government, all that's all over my plate and more, is what I traded to do instead of doing a broadcast. That stuff is not over yet. In particular, that lawsuit, that was a big deal. That is a big deal. That's an astonishingly big deal. I still am kind of shaking my head at what happened in that lawsuit that we did that became a default judgment. I mean, I expected something, but I didn't expect that. So that was a major, major, major accomplishment. I mean, I can't tell you, my mind tells me it's bigger than what I can even conceive of words. But that's what I traded to. I said, I've got to get active in doing certain things. So that's not over yet. And so I just wanted everyone to know who might be anticipating what I might have been deciding there. I want you just to know, I haven't called John yet, but I want you to know that there's just certain decisions, and it's just too much beyond me to do that. It takes a big commitment to do a broadcast, even a couple days. I just couldn't fit the time in. So enough there. Do thank you all who helped get me on to John's show. I think everyone heard there's some options, and that's really all we're here for, is just to show that we're not helpless. We really aren't helpless. And there's another way to think about this that may have been shielded from us. And when you put your mind on a foundational place and move, nobody who's attacking us is on a foundation. They've agreed by their own definition that what they do is non-organized. They come at you with an organization of attack, but they have no actual foundation from which they work. And that's why I've always said, bring the law. The law is the antidote for what they do. Why? Because they are anarchy coming at you in a way. And what you bring is the objective basis of the law. And their stuff comes without law. That's the antidote. And so I found this out in this mining law. Mining law is a land disposal law. It's the law. It's the law of the land, the soil. We don't say land. Land's been a statutory adulteration. You can use land if you understand what you're saying. That's fine. No words are off limits. It's just you understand what you're saying. And so I confine my words, when I get real technical, for us in the West and all the Western states, the enabling acts, or what's called the emissions acts in Oregon, enabling acts everywhere else, to the terminology there. I didn't write that contract, but that contract's there. That's what two entities are agreeing to fulfill. And so I'll use those words. If I use any other words, I'm talking outside that contract. And when I found out I started confining my words to the proper words, all of a sudden it threw out everybody else. Everything else gets thrown out. And guess what? They can't talk about those words because they have no right to them. It's really a fascinating filter. And so that when I'm telling you that, it just occurred to me, that's why things get so simple. I'm not, for myself, Yes, there's lots to think about. This is not, don't get me wrong. You're dealing with a lot of information, but I can filter through it very quickly. I put it in those categories I keep telling you to make. If they talk about land, that's not where I'm at. I'm talking soil. Literally. Absolutely, folks. They're talking about even the federal agencies. Public land, I'm not, unless I'm walking onto unappropriated land looking, it's not relevant to me because I'm standing on the public domain. That's what I'm interested in, and the agency can't talk to me. Where I can show an authorization of Congress, which is the mining law. So you just have to know what's out there. It's not a fabrication of things. It's the fulfillment of things. It's the ordering of things that make everybody able to do something. Otherwise, abject chaos does ensue. And you see, when the law is broken, you see chaos. As I said to the sheriff, as I told you last week and a week before that, and the commissioner that asked me, well, what's the solution to this? I said, well, how about if we just enforce the law? We bring accountability, and we see how that works for a while. What was I saying? I'm saying, well, because there is no accountability, we have chaos. Nobody knows how to solve it. So, again, thank you for all the help. Again, the broadcast goes out because of you. I don't do any promotion. Whatever you think I'm doing that can be conveyed to someone for doing an interview that you might think aids them, I'm open to do that. And so I thank you for the conduit that allowed me to get to John and make that thing happen. I want to never forget, folks. I told you this back in 2012, before I was with RLM or Liberty Media. In fact, the mind is a funny thing. Because I sit here and have sat here at the same place, I couldn't remember whether I did this broadcast on an RLM or in the Oracle. It didn't even dawn on me there was a difference, because I see from right here for the last few years almost an identical view, which I thought was kind of fascinating. But on Oracle Broadcasting, I did a broadcast back in 2012. I think it was in November. I said, never forget Benghazi. A question came up this week because of a book I think that's been written. And then a reporter spoke up, which caught my attention. And I want to bring you back to 2012 when I told you I had a source, unbeknownst to me at the time until that happened, and this friend disappeared for a long time. And when he came back, I said, where'd you go? And he kind of told me the summary issue, because he's kind of secret in that subject matter. So I only got to hear what I got to hear, and that's fine. But he told me what he told me, and I broadcast it to you that weekend. And I said, you folks better listen to Benghazi. This is a big deal. And I told you then that the policy is that the president is the only one that could have called off an automatic rescue. So this week, here many years later now, Atkinson, overwhelming body of evidence, Benghazi rescue teams were turned back. That caught my attention. I want to recall that 2012 show for you, folks. What's more interesting is we had a little quick discussion on who was able to do that. The question came, was it and I didn't know. I didn't realize that then it was accurate to make the question whether or not there was the office of the president that could. So I contacted my source again. I go, I have a question. Is it the president or the office of the president? And a new revelation hit me that I knew but hadn't put together. Talk about knowledge, not completely applied, or not applied at all. Didn't give me an insight that he put together that makes a big deal insight, proving to me, you got to, even for as much as I tell you to do so, sometimes I don't put one and one together, important things together. We kind of hear them, we hear this information, but we don't attach them to the foundation of what the effect of these disparate pieces of information are. But on Wednesday, Newsmax TV, the Steve Malzberg show, while discussing her Benghazi investigation full measure, host Cheryl Atkinson said there is now overwhelming evidence that rescue teams sent to aid the U.S. consulate in Benghazi on September 11, 2012 had turned back before arriving. I don't know if we have to read all this. Another story comes out, 13 hours, author declares there was a stand-down order in Benghazi. I told you that my source said that was required because all these things are automatic. Here's a new revelation to me. I don't know how important you're going to think. I told you it was a big deal what happened there. I've got another insight now. about this, that it did occur to me, but it didn't occur to me to be that the importance was. In fact, what we were told back in 2012 is in fact the point. These rescues happen automatically. These rescues are as important, and they are tied really to the commander-in-chief. And the identification for the importance is that football he carries. And there's more than nuclear codes in that football. Now let's move to the commander-in-chief. Why would the commander-in-chief be the actual one? Unless we're talking war or war footing or defense. Literal territorial defense. And this is where the revelation starts. It is limited to the commander-in-chief to make the decision, because when an embassy is attacked, what's being attacked is the soil of the United States of America. Think about that. Go ahead and extrapolate that before I get to you. I want you to exercise this, because I didn't exercise it. I want you to exercise it. The soil of an embassy is the soil of the nation that has the embassy. The soil. Get to the soil, folks. We're talking about soil. Soil is important here. Why would this decision to not rescue be an imperative that's equal to the nuclear codes? Is because it's an attack on U.S. territory abroad. The revelation. Because it didn't click with me. I didn't really understand. I didn't really fix on the fact that that embassy was destroyed. What does that mean, folks? And this is where my source said at that day, he knew we were no longer America. Because the commander-in-chief pulled back the rescues to stop an invasion of a war declaration on the territory of the United States, and the United States lost that day. We lost the 13-hour war, folks. It was probably one of the shortest wars ever. I hadn't really thought it that way. This is dead serious stuff, folks. I know maybe people don't appreciate a lot of this. You get into the international specter of law, it gets super, super serious. Benghazi, we lost the war, folks. We lost the territory. And they did that when the commander-in-chief let that place get overrun. So I said, well, has there been any other places that we've had overrun? Because I was thinking Vietnam. And the answer is no. The United States abandons those places right before they might get overrun, and there's a reason why they did that. So in fact, when they were overrun, it wasn't actually, in other words, they abandoned and ceded the territory for a reason. And there's a technical reason why they do it, and the word just didn't come to me. And so technically, the United States is not on that land. And then I said, so that's why it takes so long to get a place to have an embassy. Because you're setting up a territory, ceding land is a big deal behind creating an embassy. Why, when you heard an embassy was abandoned in a country by, I think it was recently in the news, it took so many years to reestablish that. These are no small things. So I wanted to, don't forget Benghazi, folks. This is a war that America lost. We lost territory in a battle, an invasion, and that was caused. That's why there's an automatic rescue. And the imperative is with the commander-in-chief. No one else has that decision. And so the question was, did Hillary Clinton do this, or did someone else? And I told you no. It was the president, the so-called, the unqualified one. And I want you to put that in your thoughts, in your calculation, in your computer. That what devolves later is NDAA, going extrajudicial. And you tell me whether or not you look at this stuff, like I tell you to look at the Lieber Code and the stuff that's laid out for us to identify what is martial law. Does it come by proclamation? Are you looking for tanks in the street? Well, no, you look right, it tells you that's not going to happen. Well, it's what their deeds are, folks. When NDAA memo said they abandoned even the Lieber Code, went extrajudicial. I told you then, your government's gone. My friend and source beat me to that when he recognized immediately that the United States land, the territory of the United States at the embassy was overrun by a war, by someone committing a war against them. We lost the war, folks. We lost this thing on his decision. And people died needlessly as well. You know that. So, enough said there. Remember Benghazi, folks. This is a, I mean, the revelation to me, I just was sitting there just pondering. In law, the United States did not protect their own and lost the soil, folks. We're just a big bully in the world. We don't even have the standards that we had as a country. This is what my friend and source is saying. He knew the country was gone then. Something terrible has happened. I don't want to dwell on that. I just want to tell you that short little sentence, something bad has happened, is a big statement. And I don't like to get too beyond. I don't like to just kind of rattle and prattle and talk about fearmonger, sensationalize this stuff. But we're talking serious problems here. And I can only tell you the depth of me is shaken a bit because of my international reading, my studies. I told you I read most of the Encyclopedia of Admiralty Law, International Law. It's all this, pretty much the same but different. You got to understand where the links are and the separations. From my core, what remembers me reading that, understands exactly what my friend is saying. And I understood it when I saw it. I just didn't put those together and give it force and effect. The force and effect is, back in Benghazi, we lost a war. We lost the soil of American territory based on a decision of the commander-in-chief not to protect it. We're almost talking about our lawsuit. There's an obligation for the state to have answered our lawsuit, to defend the territory, and they didn't. You can think about it that way, but I don't want to undermine the importance of Benghazi. Never forget Benghazi, folks. I told you this back when. It's even more important that we never forget. The country is in serious trouble. You also know right after that we lost a lot of generals and stuff. There was a reshuffling, wasn't there? Don't underestimate all this. All I can tell you is you're going to have to engage. You're going to have to do it where you can locally. You're going to have to grab this thing back and get it back. Because the top has failed. The top is a cancer. It's worse. It's out destroying the world and making excuses about it. It's got the purported biggest purse of all known history to do so. And now it's self-determined. It's the corporations like Clint Richardson's Corporation Nation. It's incestuous with this. You are incidental to this machine of supposed creation of money, and it's not out of thin air, folks. It's on your back, whether you realize this or not. It's on the promise, the full faith and credit of the people. It's on your back, you slave, you beast of burden. And they've closed shop, and the corporations of the government and the government now work together to plunder on a promise. And now we hear where they wouldn't help you before, and where the economy's been turned down so bad, they do this every once and again. They're doing it now. Where they're calling landmark infrastructure bill just passed. The citadel is breached. Congress taps the Fed for infrastructure funding. Landmark infrastructure bill passed in December. Congress finally penetrated the Fed's independence, in quotes, by tapping its reserves and bank dividends for infrastructure funding. Obviously, it's not independent, is it? See, it's a function, it's an instrumentality of the government. Everybody that says it's all private, yes, there's some interests that are private and all that kind of nonsense, but it's dictated by Congress. This is a Congress critter. It wasn't done in the dark of night, sometime the last day of the month in December, with nobody watching. It was done a few days before Christmas, while the Congress is in session, and they voted on it. Go look at the record, folks. Don't listen to this nonsense out there. These are absolutely findable actions that are presumed lawful. You go look at the presumptions of law. Really, everybody needs to take a look at the presumptions of law. I think it's Rule 311, maybe. Boy, what is that? I don't remember now. Just go look for the presumptions of law. Go read where it says that the acts done by the judges are deemed lawful, presumed lawful. Presumptions, they're lawful. The legislature's acts are lawful. Laws are lawful. That's the burden-shifting license the plunderer gave to itself when it occupies your land. And if you don't overcome every presumption, they get those free. So there's a whole different way I look at stuff, and this is the goggles I use to see, that give me a different insight. This is a big deal, this landmark infrastructure, but understand the destruction that's going on in this nation. I told you a long time ago, it was the planned Detroitification of America. They're going to tap one time the Fed underneath an account that they have access to, proving it's not independent. That's why this word independence is in quotes. Everyone wants to audit the Fed. I've told you over and over. Clint Richardson, I think, is exactly right. It's what I when I was helping Walter Burien before I met Clint Richardson to make a video about his exposure of all this, which Clint took up and did a brilliant job to truly clarify. The CAFR is the report. We don't need to waste all this time and energy. That's why Ron Paul, I think, was completely wrong. Put our energy on all this. All the energy spent to audit the Fed, it's in the CAFR. The organization of how that came about is in the law. The objective basis to understand is there if anybody wants to settle down and see it and find the truth instead of the sensationalism or complete lies. To invoke an emotion to get you to focus on the wrong thing. Oh, those dirty jerks in the Fed. They got independent corporation. Oh, it's all by itself. Oh, it beats down on everybody. Oh, end the Fed. Oh, let's audit the Fed. You're completely wrong. Go to the Congress, folks. They created the critter. All those people that are so-called representing you, they did that for you. So this infrastructure bill comes in, lots of money going to come out of this. They tap this account at the Fed. And so what this is internalization. It's going through the Department of Transportation. Again, what are they doing? They're enforcing commerce. They're going to improve now the infrastructure for commerce amongst the states. You see the Constitution working right here. The money being budgeted to improve the arteries, if you will, of the nation. Arteries like blood conduits to the heart. And this happened in December. We're going to see a lot of infrastructure. So what does that do? That puts government-created jobs on the tap, which is considered GDP. Remember, all costs by the government go to GDP. This is a landmark bill. This is going to have force and effect. They're tapping the Fed. You're seeing different ways. They balance between what the plunderer Republicrats did and the Democrats did. They worked out how they were going to save some money by going and tapping this account that they have access to, proving that the Fed's not independent, which should shed all your misconceptions, and you have to rethink about what you're hearing here. Well, all the reason why I even talk about it, I could care less about it all. There's so many things that go fine, it's bad and wrong and it's screwed up. Like I said, that's a target-rich environment as well. And I could talk endlessly about this stuff, I suppose, but it's not going to do us any good. All you need to know is what's going on and decide whether or not you're liking it. Now, in a way, this kind of buys some time for some people because these are going to be creating infrastructure jobs. Now, the bulk of the money's not going to go to the people. They're going to be they're going to slave away for it. But this is the dynamic of how they keep people controlled as well. You know, people are going to go work those jobs. They're going to get taxed for working. They're going to be sedated by this infusion of what I can't tell you what it is. It's a promise, as I can see. So all the prior drama you heard was also hyped. The government does what it does and leads the people by the nose as they will be led. So that means that the onus is on the people to stop that, it seems. And the government will make a discussion to you to get your ear and to get your consent. It will change the story as it wants. It's the great storyteller at this time. It's a thug, and it's going to do what it needs to do in order to take control of wherever the people making the policies have been planning and plotting. And they can do their plotting and planning, And given that this is still a nation of the people by its will, you don't need a law for this. This is a natural law, folks. This is why international law recognizes it. When the natives get pissed off enough and stand up, the occupier is going to be hurt. That's why the first international law of occupation is don't piss off the natives. That's your license, folks. That's your power. You don't need to take it anymore. You don't need to listen to these lies. That you do is their consent. That you do and do nothing is their consent. I can't tell you that much more simply than that's the reality of this dog-eat-dog world. When actual law and accountability is removed, you have chaos. You have a situation that they'll tell you anything they want you to tell you, just hoping that you'll believe it. As long as you do and say nothing, that stands. And so we move on over the money that can roll out, and now the infrastructure. All the corporations will be getting infrastructure money here. All the money that's been going out to wars, to fund the wars, is all incestuous. And so they got to keep the war drum being beat, and the being able to ignore what they're spending to go bomb other places while they are doing a so-called landmark bill to give you some help. No, it's to the highways, the arteries of the nation. And I don't know that these aren't going to be modernized a bit, and we're going to see more big data collection here as well. You understand that's what's going on as well. There's also going to be probably some other infrastructure things, which is why I find interesting what's going on in Flint, Michigan, though I don't really fully understand it, and their water problem. I told you they were going to Detroitify the whole of America underneath the guise of of security and helping you. And look what's happening there. But before we get over there, let's go back over to the war. Let's go back over to Syria, and let's go and hear what happened this last week. Syria has made a curious transition from U.S. ally to violator of human rights. So as the position changes with respect to the bully of the United States beating down on people that it doesn't like, that won't bend their knee to the will of Zio West, the story, the meme, changes coming out of the United States government to now vilify Syria, or the president, Bashar al-Assad, and his so-called regime, what is a democratically voted government, that all of a sudden the unqualified one, the same guy that allowed people in Benghazi to die and allowed the war, the 13-hour war against the United States, be lost in Benghazi, he accuses Syria of committing outrageous bloodshed and told Assad to stand down. While Hillary Clinton pipes up, beep, 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 and referred to the Syrian leader as a tyrant. And Elliot Abrams, Deputy National Security Advisor under Bush, called Syria a vicious enemy. When you look at the story here, you have to understand that the United States sent people to Syria, rendered the rendition program to Syria in order to do its bidding that was not legal to do in the United States. And these people have the audacity to point the finger at Assad. Now, I don't like to hear this about Assad. Why would he do that? Why do you do this to people? But they did. These are the type of people you're dealing with ultimately. Again, why I tell you don't exalt the Putins too high. Appreciate the principles they're working with because they look pretty effective, but don't exalt people too high over their natural animal nature. That Syria is becoming called a vicious enemy when it was the United States went to it before in order to allow vicious, violent acts done to people in order to supposedly get information from them. That the only thing I can consider here with the United States doing this ongoing is when you deal, it's like I think it's even went through Twitter. The United States is just incorrigible. It's worse. It's an animal. And the only time I can see is it's when the United States got insulted and now they start slinging this nonsense. It's like you're dealing with a monkey who just starts to sling poo at you, hoping that's going to do something. And in fact, I think, now that I'm thinking about, Grimner had made a comment to that, hoping something will stick. And I said throwing poo, hoping something will stick, that only comes from, essentially from a monkey flinging poo. And that's what the United States has become. That's the United States, how it acts. It's a beast. And all it can do is actually fling poo. And it's also not able to defend its territory. So it's not even the biggest gorilla in the jungle either. Notwithstanding that it's also of record, for as vicious an enemy as Syria is, the United States has dropped 23,144 bombs on Muslim-majority cities in 2015. 24,144 bombs have been dropped on another country that is no threat to the United States. On countries, I should say, not one. Apparently with a religious belief. If you thought that civil rights was anything but what I keep telling you is in law, 42 U.S.C. Section 1981. 42 U.S.C. Section 1981, your civil rights is to pay exactions of every kind, and exactions has only one definition for all you word freaks. I say that lovingly. You word freaks. Has one definition. It means extortion. Exaction means extortion. You have the right to be extorted against by any means. That's the law. That's what they're imposing on these Muslim majority countries, where you would think it comes from a country that says that you have the freedom of religion. This is the hypocrisy. The kinds of poo that gets slung by the United States is deadly poo. But you're dealing with a beast. You're dealing with a monkey. You're dealing with something that is not people. It's not a statesmanship. It's not diplomatic. It's none of that stuff. We're going to have to come to terms with that. That seems to be coming in my vernacular as well. We have to come to terms with the realities, folks. We can't dismiss these things. They become part of what we have to put into our little computers to calculate where do we fit in all this and what can we do about it. What little screw can I turn? What bolt can I dismantle in this monstrous mechanism? What toe in the monkey can I smash? What if all I can do is pull hair? Can I just continue pulling hair until I make it bleed? Fleas can kill an animal if there's enough of them biting. Talk about 1,000 little cuts. Talk about 100,000 little bites. And I know this from experience. I didn't know that until I found that out. That if you don't catch the fleas, they will literally kill an animal because they suck the life right out of it. And you think it's something else. You try to treat for a sickness and it's not there. You don't even know that you heard about the animal. You go to help, you don't know what's gone on. And this is how they're taking us out. And that's how we can respond. I may not be able to do but pull hair on a leg, but I can pull and pull and pull until it starts bleeding, and then I can hope it gets infected. And if you're on there pulling a little different hair, maybe we got someone smashing on a toenail, someone yanking on a toenail, someone poking something in the eye on this big beastie critter that was supposed to be of our making and for our benefit, that thing goes down eventually. And that's the problem. It means that you have to act persistently until it goes down. And when you go up against that whatever that beast is, or the parts of it, here's what you can expect. And I think this is an accurate interpretation. Remember, Exploitables went to non-GMO. They went right at what they thought the consumer was going to need to want to hear to give them more business. Okay, whether that was all truthful or not, I'm not going to decide that part. I want to show you what happens when you stand up. And why I keep telling you, you don't have to put yourself in jeopardy, and you do it right. And you protect against this kind of stuff. Because no one's immune. The Exploitables went to non-GMO, and all of a sudden, their woes magnified beyond all belief. They were charged with things that never happened and were found that they never did. They were told, even despite the fact that they were, the government came in, swooped in on them, and couldn't find anything, they were still imposed to do certain things and regulations and costs and expenses, and then the defamation that goes on. That now they've made such an example about not going to GMO, it's hard not to believe the industry isn't utilizing the DOJ, just like the entertainment industry isn't using the DOJ to go after Kim.com. The food industry, the pharma, whoever feels threatened, the chemical industry feels threatened by Chipotle's outward statement of going to no GMO, and I have a question of whether they can, but they're claiming it. Let's stay there. They claim it. Now the federal government is attacking them with criminal charges because I think they stood up and said they're not going to do with what the status quo government narrative is about saying that GMO is fine. The fallout from Chipotle's, I guess is what they call it, Chipotle's multiple outbreaks of foodborne illness took an unexpected turn on Wednesday when news broke that a norovirus incident in Simi Valley, California, had spurred a federal criminal investigation. Now, what does their food have to do with the norovirus? That hasn't happened in lots of places. That hasn't happened in probably every cruise ship. That they're going to hit Chipotle's with this thing. Chipotle, excuse me. I just call it Chipotle's. Numerous lawsuits have been filed against the chain, which was also linked to cases of Salmonella E. coli last year, that have yet to be linked with any deaths. It has also been yet to be linked that they caused it, folks. But I just wanted to point out, when you go against this monkey, this big gorilla that slings poo, they also protect all the minion corporations. That this looks like a big major hit. Now, can I prove the veracity of Chipotle's claims about going non-GMO? Not really. But see, the attack is what I'm looking at. And so we can stand by and we can let this company get beat up like this, or we can, those of you that want to, I could care less one way or the other, but see, there's an attack that is going to change your food supply. That it left unstated, unprotested, will and may take this company down. And that'll send the message to others, don't make that statement. You will, in the future, not say you will not take GMOs, and you will use GMOs. The pressure by the gorilla is great, and you have to know the threats here. You have to know what you're going to be up against, why it becomes so important to be part of my calculations when we address something. In fact, we talked a lot about that, not a lot, somewhat, last night. We have remedies that we have to execute, that we're walking into the time when we're facing the gorilla, and it's not a nice beast. And so when you face that, how do you proceed? It's not a question of proceeding or not. You're going to proceed. So how? You better understand really what you're up against, and that's one of the big concerns. How do you know enough? But at some point you have to make that decision to act. And so this is part of the terrain of the battlefield. We were internally taken over by the commander-in-chief, who lost territory, who turned around and attacked everybody by putting them under NDAA and the world non-extrajudicial. And where were you all with your Second Amendment right, folks? Where were you all with your alter and abolish? Where were you but crickets? It is the same minor attack that's going on to devastate this company by other companies or interests of the government that don't want to see this trend to move. And I can only say, you would think that they wouldn't care as long as they're making money, but you all know there's an underlying condition why they're giving us feed and not food. Won't go into it all, but it ties into this thing that even Clint Richardson himself did lethal injection about. Another high-profile global vaccine conspiracy exposed. This time it's the HPV vaccine. This is the system that the government's protecting. I'm not going to read too much on it. I've been on record about all this stuff. More evidence for those of you that are into this, that are trying to protect yourselves from it. Like especially in California, where they said you have to have vaccines. No, here's evidence. Get to the blogcaster. Read this story. A lot of quotations from Dr. Lee identifying the fraud that's been going on, just the crime that's going on around the testimonies and the tests around these vaccines. Putting your little ones at risk and immune to the government and those makers of this. And you know I'm on record against all these things forever. But for those of you, this is what the government allows. This is Title 50. It's all there, folks. I guess this is the thing that I don't know why it's such a big deal. What I know, it's all written. If we would just go read it, it's all there. The foundations for this plunder, this criminality, the license the government gives itself to kill you. Go read Title 50. I keep telling you that. I haven't said that in a long time, but go read it. I know it's not. It makes you sick, but you got to read it. You got to see it. You got to know this is real stuff. You don't make this stuff up. I don't find this stuff on the internet by some freedom-loving website, thinking that they can tell me how everything's all connected. And I look at it and say, well, that's a lot of statement for nothing. You could have said that over here, and it's proved in the law what you said, but better in the law. That's their statement saying they agreed to it. And I was telling you that someone could write a habeas to go after the Hammonds. I found somebody on the internet. They did it. Right at the end of December, and then I went and got their document. It's like what they call a face palm. I'm shaking my head. What did they do here? Why'd they go to the ends of the earth to try and tell all they knew about stuff instead of just getting to the point? I don't think they did the Hammonds any service at all, and they say they've never been answered, and I think I know why. Just look at the paperwork. So again, crickets. And I wonder sometimes why, though, that happens. Oh, well, somebody's doing the habeas, so everyone else doesn't. Folks, it's going to be the guy and the gal that does it right. The one that stands up with the right discussion, not the fantastical one. You don't tell everybody how much you know. Just tell them that you know. The particular thing. And have your solid foundation. To know, to be confident, not arrogantly so, but to be absolutely certain that there's not going to be any way to undermine that. We talked about build your house on the rock, folks. All these things we're told we underappreciate them if we appreciate them at all. So I won't read about this, but there's proof. Some doctor analyzes how this is there. And I know there's lots of people with little ones that are getting these shots or are subject to them and all that. You need to have this in your bag of facts if you don't have a bag of law. This is a crime going on. Have the evidence for it. Don't blow out beyond. Don't go off on these things that I keep hearing everybody talk about vaccine. Just stay on it's so simple. Stay on the fact of it. Don't think that a piece of paper defends you. Don't think that someone's logic defends you. Don't even think that the Second Amendment defends you. I just told you, we were subverted from the inside, folks. And nobody has said anything. Crickets. Second Amendment failed. I told you I wrote about this a long time ago. I said I don't want these people coming out because they're probably not really capable. They're drunk on their thoughts of all their superiority with the Second Amendment, and they didn't understand the enemy was transparent to them, folks. And so then they just start shooting anything that moves. And we have a little bit of that example happen this week, so I had to chuckle at this. It's not that I'm against the Second Amendment, and I'm not against what it means, the right to bear arms. There's that purpose. But I've told you, if we have to go there now with our awareness of the world and the history that we can find, we've failed. It's the last resort. It's the action of last resort to having to bear the arms to change and alter and abolish the government because it's went where it went. And I don't think we're not quite there yet. I think we still have some tools, but I don't think that we're capable to go to Second Amendment. And here was a little, I don't even know what to call this, little event that shows you how big and bad you are with your guns and your Second Amendment and your puffy chests, and how ineffectual that can all be when improperly done, and why I'm so concerned. A bunch of ignorance flying around the nation and the society about itself, is going to cause so much more trouble than it's worth, or than that we could have avoided. 79-year-old bird watcher, 79-year-old bird watcher takes down Oregon militant with old high school wrestling move. Grandfather of 4, Robert Saunders, says he was just out to check on some young burrowing owls at the crack of dawn this morning when he was confronted by a red-faced, pudgy man with a big gun. Here's your Second Amendment right, defending the territory, folks. And things got physical when Sanders refused the barked orders to halt and identify himself, but it wasn't the retired teacher who ended up on the ground. Long story short, folks, this big bad bully with a gun defending the territory over there in Burns decides he's going to stop someone from coming on the refuge, the very thing they said everyone should be able to do because it's public land, decides to bark orders to the 79-year-old guy, and the 79-year-old guy, when he gets stuffed in the chest with a finger, don't take it. He apparently does a leg sweep on him, takes this guy down so hard he doesn't get up. The 79-year-old guy says, I didn't know I had that move in me still. I forgot all about that. It just came out. So I'm just going to say so much for your big, bad, tough Second Amendment rights and who's behind that in this instance. I think this is the epitome of the Second Amendment movement in my view. Sanders says he landed pretty hard on his back, and I could tell he was winded because he started moaning and trying to suck air into his lungs. And that was that. And then they use it for what the truth is here. And I think rightfully so. Maybe only because it leads into my prejudice against thinking you can rely on things and having an opinion in your mind that you haven't proven out. And you're up against technology you've never seen before. And so it comes out a little bit later. We're hoping this is an isolated incident, and we're asking the elderly not to knock any more militants on their ass, said a grinning FBI agent. Which I had to laugh. Exactly. So much was violated here on this response, but this response was the epitome of the failure of the proper response. Cricket. This is major. If I have a cricket trophy, we should send it to that guy. Not the 79-year-old. Not the bird watcher. Notwithstanding, I understand the violation that refuge is. Given the condition what it is, a gentleman went out to go watch birds. He's stopped by someone who professes to be protecting the access to the public land by the people in the improper way. And he was faced with technology he was apparently unaware of. More power to the 79-year-old, not because of his age, but because of his ability to defend himself as properly as he could in the instance and make the decision. He wasn't going to take it from any bully. But look at the embarrassment to those people that are characterized as militants now. See, this is part of that. I don't think this was planned, but this is part of that psyop. This is part of the feature that's coming down to try and put a pall on what's going on there. What I've told you, there's too many wrong people over in Burns, in Harney County right now around this. Too many wrong people, and they're doing wrong things. I saw a video last night. They actually found some what they called surveillance cameras surveilling the public in boxes on telephone poles. And so they went and destroyed these camera systems. The second part of the video, and I almost hear some concurrence with, oh yeah, great, they did it. This is constitutional law, this and that. Folks, one of them was attached to a telephone pole on the inside of a power substation. And they were faced at the substation. And I can only review this from my experience. I used to be a cable maintenance technician. You've got things you got to do. You got places you got to be. You got things to repair, things you have to keep track of. That's in the middle of nowhere out there. Seemed pretty reasonable that they would put cameras to watch it so they could keep going. But these people went and said, no, this was FBI, NSA surveillance on the public, and they destroyed these apparently private property on a pole that were inside the fence of the power substation. And that doesn't set well with me. If you want to talk about, you think you can justify your existence, all of a sudden you're immune because you say Constitution, holier than thou. No. No, 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 no. That's just as much a violation. For as much as I appreciate what Ammon is doing and what they're exposing, whether I told you my problem was he didn't set his record up quite like I would like to see it. That information of what's wrong in that county is coming, folks. Lots of people doing the analysis. All those wrong people, they may very well be found out eventually. The wrong people in the town, they're being found out. I sent two links to somebody who did the research and exposed exactly what we sued in Jefferson Mining District. It's the same plunder system over there that steals this land. It's there, folks. It takes nothing to find this stuff when you know what you're looking for. And so everybody's doing it wrong over there. And they go and they apparently have vandalized and stolen what appears to be power company private property. And I'm not okay with that. And I didn't realize until I started looking at that how long ago I used to be a cable maintenance technician, and how still present in me apparently the violation to this inert equipment is, and what it costs to repair that stuff, what it costs to the people that don't get the services, what it costs to now protect against the second violation. It's phenomenal. People don't appreciate this stuff. And there's no reason for anybody to do anything about that. They're in the middle of nowhere. What was these cameras surveilling anyway, unless someone was on the street there? What is it? That they go and destroy what appears to be important equipment as well, monitoring equipment, in the middle of nowhere. It makes sense. It was a cost-effective thing. Anyway, I'm going to stop on that. That we do things wrong, folks. We take it on ourselves. This is vigilantism at the height of... Why? That's anarchy, folks. And it will not surprise me. It will not. If it doesn't happen, until we find out what happened there, it will not surprise me if the power company goes, because everything's now on tape. They put it on YouTube. How smart these morons are. It will not surprise me if they get hit with vandalism and theft, and maybe some even more serious things. And they will be right to have been charged, I will say that much. For as much as I don't like the oppression of the government, that's not oppression to the government. Even if those cameras are used to look at the road, that's not oppression of government. That they characterized it as surveillance didn't make it so. That they, like vigilantes, caused property damage without doing some preliminary research to find out for sure didn't make it so. They called off numbers like, there's some IP numbers here. They tell us where it goes. You guys that are tech oriented, you can know who they are. Well, the number they gave is really it's a private IP number that you do internal to a system. It doesn't actually go outside of a private system, actually. I considered for a while what they were doing, as I would have been a technician, and I'll tell you what, that would have been handy technology if they're doing it. It doesn't have to go that far out. There was an aerial router, wireless router. That would be just good enough to get to a truck right below the telephone pole. So the guys don't have to go up the pole 35 or 40 feet to get the information out. They can download everything right from the wireless as they drive underneath it. I thought that was a pretty neat system. But to have these vigilante constitutionalists come in and destroy property, that doesn't set well with me. For as much as you know, I talk about how we have to make it right. That's worse than crickets. That's criminal crickets. Maybe we have a new species of cricket now. This is no different than the government taking an authority to act. I'm not okay with that. I don't know what to do more about it. I want you to understand that we have to find a narrow path that we stay on, that's the bright line, that is the principled place. And we always have to act from that place. I saw none of the narrow, bright line, principled action in going to someone else's equipment and thrashing it on some belief I may have had. Employees' wellness programs not so voluntary anymore. More of the gorilla coming into your life and making a mess. Getting you to believe certain things or certain ways. I predicted all this behind the woodshed. I know other people have too. I'm not the only guy with the inside of this. Once you see this stuff, you can't help but see it. They call it voluntary taxes. People don't understand why it's voluntary taxes. It was voluntary health care. Same thing. Same imposition. But it's not voluntary like people apply it. See, it's voluntary within the structure of that subject matter. So you can go to a dictionary, you can read about voluntary all you want, it won't matter. Because the definition is defined by the utility in the statute. Special jurisdiction. That's actually private law, if people want to understand that. We call it public, but it's actually private law. It's under international law, it's private law upon you. Pretty fascinating, actually. How they got us all twisted around. It's kind of fun to kind of look at that and say, okay, I got to think of this in two ways. How they apply it and how it's actually being applied. But these programs are not voluntary. Employee wellness. Companies being given license to actually force you to do certain programs under what? Insurance and risk management. The courts have agreed to this. Dale Arnold, who worked at a Wisconsin plastics maker Flambeau, chose not to take his work-sponsored health assessment and biometric screening. You think they know about you in big data land, folks? You think I told you the corporations are the ones you have to be worried about because of big data assessments? Remember Obama scare? Pulled the plug when you kind of caught costing more? They want you in the system. They're going to get you in that system. The company responded by pulling his insurance coverage. Like many employers, Flambeau is a wellness program uses a wellness program to cut insurance costs by encouraging healthy employee habits. In the past, submitting to an on-site test of blood pressure, body mass, cholesterol meant saving a few $100s. Now companies such as Flambeau have gone a step further, denying health care entirely to those who don't participate. People like Arnold must instead pay for expensive coverage through the government's COBRA program. Remember, we were told that you can keep your doctor and it's going to be inexpensive. We have another proof it's not, and we have the proof of the extortion that's going on. And so let me stop there, because my whole point on this wasn't to read about the wellness program that's not voluntary. It's I want to focus you back on the point. What's the point here? I'm going to give you a moment here. Think about, where am I going to go with this? What is the employer-employee relationship, folks, but a master-slave relationship? Why you don't have a choice. You enter into these employment contracts, and they actually have a government oversight to them. They're like a marriage, where the two parties joined in marriage have a third party being the state to that marriage. And the product of that marriage, your little ones, is also property of the state. What kind of a world were you born into, folks, if you didn't understand that, and you are in that world? But master-slave relationship, folks, master, not a debtor bee, employee, not a master bee. You master-slave relationship. Just go look up that relationship. You can't walk into that and expect anything. If you don't mind that, then continue to work. This is the commerce system they've trapped you into. Could you make, I can't say employment, could you make contract for different relationship? Absolutely. Will they? Probably not. And so you are going to have to look between the answers of to have, to be, to have or to be, or make up your own. That's why they hate miners. I'll just tell you that, because the miners have a property and they're independent. We don't need no stinking jobs. We were granted the obligation to go to work. But we don't need no stinking jobs. Like Bundy didn't need no stinking escort out of the county. And we don't need no stinking badges. It's an independence that they hate and don't like, that property brings. Property in a contract, folks. The property in an employment contract is a relationship of master versus slave. They'll call it servant. It's slave. You thought slavery ended, folks. It didn't. Lawful slavery was not illegalized. Only unlawful slavery. Go read, I think, the 13th Amendment, the 14th, no, 13th or 12th, whatever. Go read those things, folks. They tell you. There's legal slavery that can happen. And the way they do that is they get your consent. It's the same way they get you into a contract of servitude before the courts. That's servitude. It's peonage. They define peonage to be a crime, but not when you agree to it. Because they put it in a different class. So this is the big deal here about employee wellness programs. Why you don't have a choice, why the companies have the upper hand, is because they're the master. If you don't want an inanimate object to rule you, Stop. And the more people, this is like any other thing. If you want something to stop, stop giving your consent to it. Will that bring hardship? Possibly and probably. Why? Because we're that screwed up as a nation and a society and in a spirit awareness. That was SCROODUP, screwed up. Master slave. So here we go. Walmart. Those of you thinking you got some protections as a slave, they're going to turn you out. Walmart to fire 16,000 as it closes 269 stores globally. Didn't hear about any plumbing problems extra, but it sure seems to be tied to all those with plumbing problems. So we saw this as a plan coming down. If you thought the future was stable, folks, I don't know if you've been paying attention. I've been asking some people, pay attention to April. There's lots of companies been shutting down. They're planning to start firing people in April. That's about the end of the fiscal quarter. Watch what's going on here. There's something moving, and I'm not going to predict it. This is just the turn down of business now. They can't sustain it anymore, folks. You're going to probably have to go elsewhere, and I think some of this stuff is a blessing. Why would you want to be in a master-slave relationship? Am I saying it's easy to be out of that? No, but that's what they got us in, and that's what we'll run willingly to do. Because we have nothing else. That's how they put a ring in your nose and you accept it. And it's tough. That's why we really have to start looking at each other and protecting each other. We have to support each other where those of us that can and help each other where we can. It's not going to come from anywhere else. I don't really have all that answer. I just know that it's not coming from government. This infrastructure going to help to appease this. You notice in April, see, it's coming down. They just put more money now to build infrastructure. They put people to work. They're going to put some of these people to work. Why? Because they can't piss off the native. They can't put the pressure so long the natives blow up for any reason. They can fight amongst themselves and fume and fuss, but that's it. The occupier can't let it get worse than that. And they get you to do things because they push on your needs. They know natural law very well, better than you do. Again, Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It's a partial handbook on your frailties, and someone knows that. Get past what you're told on that. I'm telling you what it's about. Go read it for that. It's a long read. That was a devastating read to me. It was one of those revelatory readings. And literally put me down. I just didn't. The whole world was a big doom after I read that. I realized what dupes we've been. And maybe that drives some of what I see today. But I see we've been dupes. We're easily dupable too. And so they get us into our needs and we can't help it. This is not a judgment statement. We can't help it. We have to go to work. But they don't have us in a mindset that makes us get more active about how we enter into the agreements about how we work and become steadfast in our discussion universally, that we won't allow for anyone to be taken advantage of. See, that's the reason why unions were created, but they took and used those to disadvantage you as well. They take a natural need and requirement and they take advantage of it. And we have to start becoming aware of that. And we have to be principled enough to look across the aisle and not take advantage of the next guy and say, we're not going to enter into a contract that's less than our value. And we're going to fairly value ourselves. And we're going to enter into contract. We're going to become knowledgeable in contracts and how to agree to proper ones. Keep them simple, but keep them sufficient. And nobody go to work underneath these things. And pretty soon, like deciding that Chipotle will not do GMO, those people that didn't want GMO can go there. Then you see the attack. You got to weather that, but you'll prevail. Why? Because the power's in the people. I know it sounds trite, but it is, folks. It really is. Because it's down to you. It's under your consent or not. And they don't make it easy. So I'm not judging anybody. I'm just telling you a reality. I understand the other side. Agreed. I wouldn't be, but for being provided the space to concentrate on what I do. Otherwise, I'd be like everybody else in trouble and not able to do this. So, yes, I'm a rarity, but it took a few people. It takes more than me to allow me to focus on this. But I'm here to do that, and I do that. So it's not, again, it's commitment and dedication for this other thing I thought we were really worthy of, that we're short of, that we can go get. And all the obstruction that's placed before us can be surmounted, folks. We just start dealing with things a lot more intelligently. A lot more intelligent than the smart world they're going to be foisting on us. The smart world that they're going to entice and induce you to accept on your own. So these next two stories were really kind of fascinating to me. Man uses microchip implanted in hand to pass through airport security. They're now promoting the chip in the hand and a kit for you to put the RFID to make your life so much smoother when you go through places. Experiment is what they tell you now, folks. These people are brilliant. Experiment. Find out what this technology is. Here's this kit. Inject this RFID and see how it works for yourself. A man who implanted a microchip containing his airline booking details into his hand was able to use it to pass effortlessly through the security to his flight. So what they do, TSA comes and gropes you and rapes you and everything else, and then they say, but that guy has an RFID thing in his thumb, and he gets through without all this. Well, what are you going to do? Most likely, I want one of those thumb things. And so this is an article, you need to kind of see this in the Blogcaster, how they're doing it to people. They induce you. They'll induce not everybody, and certainly not the most staunch against the ones of us against this. They are going to get enough people. They are going to put the stick on one side and the carrot on the other, and people will naturally migrate to the carrot. Who wouldn't? A sadomasochist maybe, but again, this is what they'll do. The bulk of society shifts. Wherever the government attaches the carrot, that's benefit. That's deception. Another one pops up. Fascinates me what's out there. And what they use. Your innateness, your what you think is your needs, they use. Everyone's figuring this stuff out. Used against you. Big data. Figuring out so they can get you to behave differently. At the same time, it's pretty ingenious little ideas. Not that I'm interested in this. It's just one of these things. They get you to take it on because they appeal to something you think you want. Dating app, newbie, Bloom, wants to kill catfishing with ephemeral selfies. Now, I didn't even understand how this worked. These little pieces of concentrated evil really are, these iPhones are really, really terrible. But they're all over the place. And so people use them, and apparently there's they're little computers, and you get to mess with them by having an app no different than a program I would run on a desktop. But make room yet for another dating app. San Francisco-based Bloom is hoping to entice singles into its arms with a real-time selfie feature designed to thwart catfishing. So no more being chatted up by sex-mad robots or wooed by forlorn hopers overselling their dating prospects with a set of outdated, overly processed photos. This program allows you to take a picture immediately, where you are, how you are, whatever you are, and send it to the other party who requests it for 7 seconds, and then it disappears, to entice you into saying immediately whether or not you want to engage the next step or not. It's kind of ingenious how they've done this. If there's an agreement on the first impression, you get permission to now communicate with each other and send chats and all this other stuff, and you get access to their account, which has more pictures. So this is a dating app that allows you real-time testing and communication. I found this thing to be brilliant. Look at what they're doing to get you to do where you are, when you are, how you are, anytime you believe you're going to accept it. And I just looked at all the abuses that could happen. They actually say that it doesn't fulfill and stop any other abuses, like pictures that weren't you in full and were the more nasty pictures that they try to avoid. But look at it from a big data side. What they're enticing you to do, trying to resolve the problems of the existing dating structure. They know you want to go meet people. They know you're not going to lift out of your face, out of the phone. You're going to be right there, and you're going to do all your life through that phone. So why not date? And we're going to bring some convenience to you and some benefit to not be preyed upon. And all this time, you get you to take a picture wherever you are, how you are. GPS goes there. Who you're with goes there. Where you're at goes there. Who's around you goes there. But most likely the sounds go too. And this is all being collected about your life. And they use your desire to want to meet people to do it. And you're going to do it. If you're that wired, you'll do it. And they'll find all the ways to do that in all these apps, and all these procedures, and all these force and effects they put in the real world against your needs. Which will be what? It's being put into prosperity, isn't it? It's being put into that other word, austerity. Prosperity is your shared contribution. And don't underestimate that dating app. That it's not tied to your social credit as well that's coming. Your digital, non-cash social credit. Your loyalty to the government. Don't underestimate the connections here. As they move you, data acquisition for them, the analysis, and cause your behavior to adapt underneath this guy here, who now comes out of the woodwork, as I told you he was going to. The Pope wants you to pray for a one world religion which underpins and supports as a moral authority this very thing I've been identifying, as we've been finding out, as Agenda 2030, the next 15 years of the plan, that seeks to control production and consumption. Production is land and soil, folks. They have no title to it unless you look at the documents of the Pope, and they claimed it. So I don't agree with it. I have a whole different attitude about it, because even if he did own it through his agent, United States government, for all of y'all that want to go that way, let's go that way. That grantor gave up. Gave the power of a treaty, gave up that land. So they disposed of it, all right? And they are the grantors, and there was no reservations. If you don't think I've thought hard and long on how to work out how to discuss it, if it ever became a question of the dialogue, you know that's not going to happen. But if it does, if you haven't thought about how deep you can think about this and how core the answer is to all of these intrusions, trespasses, and crimes, you really are underappreciating what this disposal landlord of the United States is all about, and what it does and what it can explain to you. The Pope wants you to pray to one world religion. I told you it was happening. It underpins the moral authority of your requirement as a social mortgage in the world to contribute the communal share. That's your prosperity. And how are they going to keep tabs of that? Through dating apps like the one you see, where they'll keep track of everything you do, because you want to meet the young, exciting woman or the young, exciting guy in your life. You're so starved for attention. Even though it's going to be viewed through your phone, you're so starved for the attention that you're going to do it. And they're going to be seeing this whole underpinning, this whole religion of the world is coming on. This guy is here. He's telling you now. I told you it was coming. The universal religion has been a long time plan of the so-called Catholic Church. It's right in the news. Don't even have to make this stuff up anymore. It used to, this conspiracy theory, or it was like, listen to that tinfoil hat wearing guy. Well, right now the tinfoil hat wearing people aren't being affected by the rays they found out they're shooting at your brain. Figure that little neat thing out while they're feeding you, not giving you food. I want to read these stories. It just astonishes me the titles are enough to connect all this nonsense together. And you read inside the stories, like I told you to go to Blogcaster, you'll see it in spades how it works. More and more connections, and you can follow those down. Like you can get involved to whatever level you want with what I tell you in the afternoon. In this afternoon time, the summary discussions I throw out, the way I see them, to maybe spark an interest, maybe to go see some more if you're interested. I can't ask you to do that. That's up to you. But if you don't understand the foundation of those that are coming against us is actually a lack of foundation, you're going to make the wrong step when it comes time. It's kind of like working out an algorithm and you didn't know there was another part to the formula. You missed the divide by one, or the divide it by one type of thing, or the inversion, I guess I'm getting at. The subversion of the division. You missed the part of the equation that put the whole thing on its head with respect to what you thought was going on. That's what these stories do for me. They are filling the variables in an algorithm that's been laid out somehow. And I just point them out to you, so you say, you better put that into your thoughts, because that's the algorithm that you're going to have to work against this world in. They're using one, you better have one for yourself. And I'm not saying this is a physical number, a physical thing. This is just a thought, an idea how this thing really works out. There's a way to come to the answer on this. If you have the right variables, you come to that answer. If you don't, you may not even, you make technology, you can't even see these people. That's why they become transparent to you. This Pope wants to bring on this moral, they've imposed with you a moral obligation in the world now. Who are these people? And then they come to you and they tell you more. They sling more poo. The gorilla, this Pope is just another gorilla, another monkey, throwing poo, hoping something sticks. Hopefully you stand out the way. We don't even have to see it. You just point, hey, quit flinging poo. I've had it. It's up. We're going to put you back in your cage. But they rely on stuff and stories and fantasies to tell you, and the proof is that there again, the same guy wants to do this environmental thing. He plugs into climate change. That's a whole other big data consideration. It's a whole other smart thing that's not so intelligent. You better make your choice on whether you want to be smart or intelligent, folks, because this is where it's at. And when you go to be intelligent, you better be. Because these smart criminals are nothing to be just toying with. Again, if you ever wanted more proof, satellites data proves changes in the sun cause recent global warming, not humans, not the little booger animals that they're going to be making chimeras out of to make smaller so they meet the carbon footprint of the future we want. Not you want, what we want. That's we, they talk from them. That's in there in the Agenda 2030 as well, isn't it? But there's a story here, another showing out the satellites and proving out that the sun caused this. Oh, that's a heresy. The Pope does not believe in the sun, folks. I told you this over and over and over. What I do in September, over and over. I told you I was running into that saying, here, this is it, folks. This is the demarcation for the world right here this month. And now he comes out and says, I want one world religion. It's the moral authority that's subverting your entire life based on this thing called climate change as a tool. The science of which shows you that there is a sun out there. Galileo 2.0. That he denies, and we found out the Pope so-called is a scientist so-called. Not a good one. He's a science, not even a science, he's a fraudster. We'll just call him a fraudster. That's the Pope. That's the moral authority of the world. That the Obama, the commander-in-chief that lost the 13-hour war at Benghazi and can forever change the status of the United States government, actually, in the face of the world, he agrees with that moral authority. If you don't think that this is a debased system and that you need to make a decision, do you want to be smart or do you want to be intelligent? They're bringing a destruction upon our lives. I told you back in 2009, I talked about a little bit earlier, the Detroitification of America, it was happening. I said that the green all these green jobs, these green industries, were the green shoots that they were going to start in Spain when they had the collapse. And I told you before the winter was out, the green shoots would be dead. And I pointed out last week, it's taken all these years for Australia to understand the green shoots are dead. These plants, these environmental plants that they had are dead. It was a fraud. Well, they're not just after the power, they're after your water. This is not new news. Flint water crisis. Michigan governor makes appeal to Washington for help. Listen to the plunder going on here, the setup for the takedown. I don't really understand what's going on in Flint. They moved an intake supply of water from one place to the next, and it caused, apparently there's an acidic problem in the water that caused lead supposedly to leach out, and it's now dirty water. How that happens, I don't understand. Into the Flint, Michigan water source. And people are getting sick. People are under threat of being sick. Why didn't they just move the source back until they could fix it? They're not doing that. No, they're calling to Uncle Sam's, help me, help me. And guess what? A landmark infrastructure bill pops up. Wow, I don't know what's going to happen, but it sure sounds like they're going to do something there that's going to be the new world system. They Detroitify America, they bring it down to nothing, and you'll accept whatever they give you. Maybe even that recirculating water system where through the toilet goes, you want another drink of water, you better go flush the toilet. Remember that news. All these new systems that are going to come in, all this infrastructure to come and big data you, smartly connect you. That's one of the things. I don't know what they're doing in Flint. I don't understand how this problem, they had the money to divert, why don't they have the money to send it back? and restart the water. In an area that I think Gary O even pointed this out, they get a lot of bottled water out of the Great Lakes. What's going on there? My surmise, and I don't know, is possibly they moved the diversion. The good water they had, they probably gave it to a bottler under contract. But the people suffer. The people are the animals, and they don't care about what they give you. And if they really wanted to solve it, they would have. And then they would try to solve it. They try to show you they solve it. They do it by inefficient, expensive, time-consuming, really irrelevant ways. Like, we're going to hand you a filter that's going to take out each one of you now get a filter to put in your water. Well, they can't do that. They're going to go down buy the bottled water that came from the original source, most likely, because the city's not working to help them. So, Flint, Michigan water crisis, folks. Take note. This is not going to be the only place. This is the Detroitification of America. This is the cancer coming out. This is the new development stuff coming in, right underneath our noses. And all we want is fresh water, so we'll do whatever they say, aren't we? Think about that, how easy it is for us to become subject to the tyranny. Why it's so important, beyond prepper, to become independent as best you can. It's why they're going after independence, because they're going to bring this other thing. You have a moral obligation under this new religion that's coming. It's going to be the green religion. It's already here. It's sustainable development in the world. And you have a moral obligation to contribute what you can, your share. That's your prosperity. It's in the words. We don't have to go very far. You're good. You're surveilled. Your data is going to be collected. There's now a pushback. Remember, we talked crickets today. Crickets up until now. Maybe not so much now. Somebody has fought this stingray thing, the collection of data without your knowledge. I told you, you just have to step forward and do this. Get knowledgeable in the small subject matter area, and at least become a stick in their spokes about it. Chicago police must finally produce stingray records, judge orders. A local activist has all these titles, characterizations, whatever. Local activist has won an important intermediary step in the legal quest to force the Chicago Police Department to produce documents that fully explain the department's use of cell site simulators, also known as IMSI catchers. Won't go on more. This didn't happen until this guy steps up and does this, understands what he's up against, and goes after it. The judge in this case is going to allow it. For the first time, we may understand, for those of you that have these phones, they may understand how they're catching this. It may give us the first glimpse on how we can protect ourselves from it. It takes someone to step up, because big data, the Internet of Things, has got you by the throat. It's got your fingers trapped. It's got your seat sucked to the seat. You ain't going to escape it. It's got it in your eyes. It's in these phones. It's in your TV. It's everywhere. No matter what you do in this coming society, it's going to be to track and trace you. It's going to be to analyze what you've done, and it's supposed to look, and it's going to compare what you're doing compared to what that moral obligation is going to be that this criminal under color of a white robe, called this thing called the Pope, this concentrated evil, has said you owe to Gaia, the rest of the world, while he denies the sun. If you don't think you live in an artificial reality when they get involved, you better start paying attention. Matrix is not a movie. I haven't said that in forever, a long time. The Matrix was not a movie. You better unplug, and you better understand and be ready for the centurions to come on you when you do, like Chipotle is now suffering. And I'm telling you, you can survive it. You're not Chipotles. You're by yourself. You can be within league with other people that are just as independent, with the right way to go at it. Not the way you might find in lots of places. Because they're after everything you do in this digital world. They're going to control every aspect. And when you inquire, you might get the answer. So that a so-called activist inquired. A judge is going to let him have an answer. Someone inquired into Microsoft showing off about what they collect under Windows 10, the users' data. Microsoft showed it. It was shocked people at how much it was. I just tell you it's there. All you people with Windows 10, this is an information sponge. And they're aggressive about it. We've been through this before. More stories. When you finally ask and you get to see, when you stop making what they're doing transparent to you, when you call it out and get it in the black and white, the truth is shown. I'm not making a judgment on what that's going to be, but at least you get to see the truth. And it doesn't happen if you don't ask. The presumption is, I'm telling you, go read the rules of evidence, folks, on presumptions. The presumption is that the world is warm and cuddly and lawful. I tried to explain a little bit when I said, but the sheriff keeps the peace, saying that actually the world is not warm and fuzzy and cuddly and lawful. It's violent. So we got to get our head wrapped around this reality so we can respond to it. But Windows, Microsoft products are sucking this stuff out of your life. They're imposing themselves upon you. And it's beyond what even people who are in the industry had thought. As I told you before, watch out. It was predicted in the Silent Weapons of Quiet Wars document. There's a place for you in this society that they'll get you to plug yourself into, and it's the worst thing may be than NSA will be this corporate structure which supports the government plunder itself. It's a part and parcel to it. It just doesn't look like it. Question: recently bought a Windows computer? Microsoft probably has your encryption key. We talked about that. I have a series of few articles here about Microsoft and what they're doing. And I talked a little bit about this point. They actually store your encryption keys on the cloud in their servers. They tell you that they delete them. But in fact, someone was able to get back up into their account and found out they were not deleted. The encryption keys that's supposed to be securing your system. This is what I told you Microsoft did when they bought Skype. I told you this. They paid a lot of money for Skype, not because it was Skype, because the NSA, the government, the big data needed the encryption key to get and break down their encryption system because they wanted access to your information. They paid money for your information. Like Facebook provides free your access to fraud book, they're doing it for your information. Big data. You should really consider installing Signal. It's a program, Signal, an encrypted messaging app for your phone. I've been kind of trying to get people to do that, like we use talks and things. We really have to move ourselves over, folks. We really have to start insulating ourselves from the Internet of Things, how they want us to go, because they have the ability to push the button that kills your connection to the world. And they'll know right how to do it, when to do it, and that they can do it. We have to have lines of communication being built. I've been asking more people to get talks. I've been asking people to get on the Firefox Hello in the interim. It makes it even easier. You can go communicate right through the browser. It's fascinating. Not sure if it's what the quality is yet, actually, for broadcast. I'm trying to work that out. That's one of the hang-ups right now with maybe talking with Ron and doing the broadcast. I'm waiting for some connections to see how that's going to work for us, if we can do it. I'm sort of out of touch with anything quality to do any other broadcast than from this system. So to do another interview is very difficult. And if you listen to the Statmiller broadcast, I didn't like the quality, but there it was. It was adequate, but it's not the kind of quality I want to put out. So we have these encrypted alternatives. Still requires the internet, but at least we can go through and be limiting our exposure. A lot of people ask me, well, I don't care. In fact, Statmiller said that. Well, I don't care what they know. And I told John, well, I do, because I do things I don't want the government to know. Literally, folks, we do things I don't want the government to know. Why? Because we attack what the government's doing when they harm people. We sued the government. I didn't want them knowing our lawsuit before we got there. I don't want them to see the communications I'm doing with people that are going to address the government, that are attacking them. Folks, when you get in and do something, you'll find out you want some privacy. This is not about sticking it in you're sticking your thumb in their nose. No, this is a real war. And if your information does happen to get out, it can be very serious and detrimental. Then the surprise is on you. So I've been advocating this stuff for a while. I guess maybe it doesn't impress people because again, you're just more on the uptake side than you are with the do side. And I just keep asking you, keep pressing, and eventually, as soon, folks, find that wrong you have to make right, and just persist till it is. Then the people, the slave masters that we have. Spying on Congress is an older story. I think I talked about. I'll bring it up right here, where they're spying on us. But what's good for the goose is not necessarily good for the gander, and that shows you the division in your own representation. Again, evidence of the facts of whether or not you want to agree to it. And I say, if you're already beyond the vote and all that kind of, and the franchise that brings, and the servitude that brings, and you're already there, but maybe someone you need to explain this to, this will show as a little bit of an evidence, maybe a little bit different, little off a cuff, but spying on Congress and Israel, NSA cheerleaders discover value of privacy only when their own is violated. You can show the government's in a disconnect for those that can't see it. When their privacy is invaded, these people are supposed to represent you, they didn't like it so much. When it was going after Israel, Zio West didn't like very much that their own self can look inside what they're all doing. That's a big clue of what's really going on. GPG for journalists. Again, encryption and a discussion on how to do it more correctly. Moving this big data, what the Pope's bringing in, what the Sustainable Development does, what Silent Weapons or Quiet Wars talks about. We have to come to the reality that at some point the battle gets heated enough, and when you get involved, you start to sense this a lot more, and you actually have to experience it. It'll become more important. I hope it isn't too late when it does become important for most people. We really have to start to make a distinction in what we do between ourselves and what we do outwardly. And there's keys now. There's things in the internet to explain this to us that are really kind of having to do other things as well. But we really have to get into this. So a lot of links here in a row about how do we get ourselves start to get ourselves more digitally isolated. And I'm saying that for those of you, maybe this is only relevant to people that are actually going to step out and do the work it's going to take. But we're definitely going to have to get in communication with each other that are somewhat protected. I can't tell you how often we get the idea when there's no contact, well, how did you find that out? Where did you find that information? These people don't want to know what it is you told them. They want to know how you found it out. See, they're asking. They know it's supposed to be transparent. We're not supposed to see it. They want to know, that's all they're asking. They're asking, well, it was supposed to be transparent. How'd you find it? Well, you don't tell them. You just work with the information. Again, you don't tell them what you know, how you got there. You just work with the information. To do that, you're going to have to find some protection, because this world is going into the digital governance as well as the global governance. As I was pointing out to you before, Silent Weapons or Quiet Wars was a kind of a pivotal document to understand it, even though it kind of goes off into electronics. I read you the parts that don't require us to know so, that will give you the serious plan of what we're up against. And if I'm saying if you don't take it serious, we're subject to that. It's like a surprise. But it'll be shame on us, remember? I mean, I'm telling you this. This is why I say I'm condemning you to this. You'll be choosing to accept this ring and this servitude, this slavery. I can't place it anywhere else. We are supposed to be independent. There is a better day. There's a better way. It requires organization. It requires commitment to organization. It requires these oaths that we keep hearing about. It requires that there's accountability. We're so far from that right now. We just need more people coming and wanting that. We need to have people that want accountability across the board equally. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. It doesn't matter that you're some government employee. That was never supposed to be an immunity. Thank you very much. Hope anything I said was helpful and puts you on the right path for yourself and gives you some insight. Thank you very much again for all the help for John Statmiller getting me there and getting that worked out. Thank you for the domains and websites here. We've got Real Liberty Media and Grimner that allows the blogcaster and the archiving for all y'all, and Grammy Mary's WT, worldtruth.org, social network you can join up with, and where the Spreaker account we talk out of, and all you on Spreaker, make sure to jump into the blogcaster. That's where all these content links go. You can read more about this stuff. And UCY.tv, thank you, Jules, and all the chatters there, even though I don't do the chats very well. I get to you all later when I get back in later in a few minutes. I'll read through some of it. And the terrestrial broadcast, I appreciate all that. So pass the broadcast around. Let people know that I'm here and available to talk on certain things. You know what I'm here for, and we'll see how this continues. I don't know what else to do. I'm just going to keep plodding along, and just hopefully more and more of y'all will come to the terms. We'll all come together, and we will be that force to be reckoned with, better than what maybe we're seeing in the public's eye right now, actually. Take care.